Howdy folks, welcome to me doing a test run of making mead on video. Because in good little brother fashion, I was inspired by my brother Dave of all trades. He makes cool videos, and that makes me want to make cool videos. So we're going to be making mead on cell phone video. Yeah, so this is all the stuff you need to make a good 6.5 gallons worth of mead. Obviously you need something to put it in. That's the big mouth bubbler here. It's upside down. You need something to mix your honey and water in, a big old pot. You need some measuring tools. There's a hydrometer and a refractometer. You need yeast. I use this Premier Blanc champagne yeast because it works really well. You need a bit of a scale. You obviously need honey. So your basic recipe, my basic recipe, is about 2.5 pounds to 3 pounds of honey per gallon of mead. Volume wise, that works out to about a ratio of 1 to 3. One unit of honey to 3 units of water. So you got some yeast nutrient there, and got a good amount of water. Everything's been sanitized. Oh, and you want some paper, because you want to write stuff down. So let's make some mead. Like I said, everything's been cleaned and sanitized. And it's always going to be your first step for everything. So we're doing 6.5 gallons. So we're going to use 18 pounds of honey. Like I said, just 12 pounds per gallon. So we're going to use 1.5 gallons basically. The scale is so that I can measure out the 6 pounds of this second thing of honey. We're just going to go ahead and toss this one in its entirety. Oh, spoon. Alright, honey is going in the pot. There we go. I can do this one-handed. I guess I could tell you about this honey while I'm doing this. So this honey came from a local apiary, word I learned relatively recently. They're beekeeper people, a little bit north of Dallas here, and found them on the good old interwebs and met up with them to get some honey off them. So that's the first gallon. I'll probably rinse this out with some water and get a little bit extra stuff in there while I let it go to waste. And this specific batch of honey seems to have come from close to a peach orchard. People who professionally deal with bees kind of travel with their bees, move them around to wherever is needed for pollination. So this batch came from somewhere where there were peaches. Crap. Let's see. Alright, cool. So instead of doing subtraction, we're just going to pour out till we get to -6 pounds. That should work. So this tastes a lot like peaches, and it's really good. I'm really excited to see what kind of mead this comes up with. Alright, let's see where we're at here. Oh, that's not even close. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. More honey. Alright, that's close to 6 pounds. Oh, Jesus Christ. This stupid thing shut off. Alright, turn it back on. Let's see where we're at. We're at 7 pounds, 6.5 ounces. Chair weight is there. Okay. I might have to tear this every time. So we've got about 12 ounces left to go. More honey in the pot. Okay. Let's see if that was about 12 ounces. Yeah, that was almost a whole pound, so we went a little over. No big deal. So that's their honey. Alright, so now we need to mix that up with some water. I'm going to have to put you guys down for this because I got to use 2 hands here. Hold on. Alright, I'm back. Let's see, I added a fair amount of water to the pot. We're about to mix that. I also added a little bit of water to my yeast rehydrating glass. Before I add my yeast in there, I'm going to add just a touch of honey. So that the yeast has just a little bit to eat once it starts waking up. There we go. There's some honey in there for them. A little bit of sugar. Everybody likes sugar. Alright, so we're going to add the yeast in there. Yep, sorry. Alright, here we go. There's the yeast. Give that a nice little stir. Get everything all nice and wet, and mix that honey up a little bit. And then that'll start rehydrating, and the yeast will start coming to life a little bit. Using this yeast in the past, this is actually a new batch, so with this type of yeast, usually it'll rehydrate in about 15 to 20 minutes, and the yeast will start kicking off real quick, maybe in an hour or something. I'm going to move that because I've got some sugar ants over here running around. It's hard to deal with a bunch of honey without ants finding it. So I'm just going to keep that out of their way. And now we're going to stir up this sugar, well, not sugar water, but honey water. Great thing is you don't need to heat this at all. In fact, you don't want to heat it. You can a little bit. It'll help it dissolve some. But you don't want to heat it too much or you'll start breaking stuff down from the honey. And you spent a lot of money on raw honey. You don't want to break down all the waxes and resins and proteins and whatnot that the bees worked so hard for. You don't want to screw that shit up. So just stir it. And if you're worried about bugs and stuff in your water, like bacteria or whatever, 1, get better water. 2, I mean, if you're really worried about it, boil your water and then let it cool back to normal temperature before adding your honey to it. Just use regular room temperature water. Honey dissolves pretty easily. The way I do it is, well, you're probably not going to be able to see it, but you kind of stir until there's no more honey sticking to your spoon or your whisk or whatever it is you're using. Oh, you can smell the peaches. Oh, it's amazing. I think it's going to be a very light colored mead. It's not very dark even now. Yep, I've still got a little bit of honey hanging onto the spoon there, so we're going to keep on stirring. Take a look again. There's still a little bit there. You can kind of feel it at the bottom of the pan too. It doesn't feel like you're scraping bottom. There's a little bit of a little slippery layer. I'm gonna let you know you're not done. Now you can do this in parts too. Mix up the majority of it, dump it in your fermenter, and then if there's still some hanging out, you can add a little more water in there and get that going. Nobody likes wasting honey. Not when you paid $7 a pound for it. Alright, spoon is looking clean. So we're ready to mix. Okay, great. Alright, so now I guess we're going to flip over our fermenter and try not to drop it. There we go. What I'm going to do is add the yeast nutrient right to the bottom so that it mixes up. So this yeast nutrient, I just got it off Amazon. It uses 1 to 1.5 teaspoons per gallon, so we're going to use 2 tablespoons of it. And the nutrient is because there's not a whole lot of stuff going on in honey. And then there's like the waxes and the resins and hopefully some pollen and stuff hanging out in there, but yeast needs stuff to eat other than just straight sugar. So we're going to add some nutrient for it to keep our yeast healthy. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pour the rest of this one jug in here. Get that started. Yeah, the spigot's turned off. Let's give that a good stir in there. That's not really going to dissolve. There's like grain husks and whatnot in there, so that's, I mean, it's not going to dissolve, but you don't want it stuck to the bottom either. Alright, so now I'm going to pour my honey water in there. I guess you could call it must. It's not really must yet. And I'm just going to put y'all down. Well, no, I'm going to stop the video and do it, because I'm going to add the rest of the water in there as well. And that takes 2 hands, like pouring this does. Alright, I'm back, and here we are with my full 6.5 gallons of must. I got another good stir to make sure everything is nicely mixed together. You don't want your heavier sugar or honey water hanging out at the bottom. I keep saying sugar water because, I mean, that's really the important part, isn't it? So let's take a gravity reading. Oh, nice thing about these wide mouth bubblers or big mouth bubblers or whatever, hey, just drop your hydrometer right in there. We'll let that sit and it's gonna stay bubbly. But then we're gonna record that specific gravity because that's how you figure out how much booze you're gonna get out of this thing. Let's see what we can see here. Alright. Now, I'm not going to be able to actually see where that is on the camera, but looks like we're maybe a couple dashes into that blue section. So what is blue? That's bricks. It doesn't want to focus on it. There we go. So we're looking at right around 1.10 specific gravity. Come on, focus. There we go, right there. 1.10 specific gravity. I think that's about where we were. Maybe just a touch past, but not enough for it to really matter. So, on our handy little thingamajigger here, we can see that that is going to be at right around 13% alcohol by volume once that finishes out. Weirdly enough, the scale goes below 0%. Never figured out what that means, but whatever. And if y'all want to see how a refractometer works, I can show you that too. So let's see. Here's a little pipette over here off camera. Okay, so we're going to take a very small sample. Very small. Boop. And we're going to come over here to my refractometer. Whoop. And we're going to put our sample onto the refractometers. Oh, that's plenty. And we're going to slap that thing down on it. Let's kind of spread it out. And then we can look at it. Let's see, where's my camera lens? There we go. So you can see this actually measures the refractive properties in the sugar water. And that gives you, it's really counting the brick scale, but it gives you the specific gravity as well based on just a simple formula. And so, nicely enough, you can see that these match up. This is great for your initial gravity. It's not good once the yeast actually starts working because the alcohol changes how light refracts, and that screws everything up. And you have to make adjustments for it using the hydrometer, which kind of, isn't done so much. But this lets you test your recipes on a small scale. So I did this earlier with just like a half teaspoon of sugar or honey and 1.5 teaspoons of water. Mixed that up and stuck that on here just to test my 1:3 ratio, and yeah, I got the same thing. So this was as expected. So we're pretty much done. That's it. We have to wait for the yeast to finish hydrating. It's over here. You can kind of see it's getting a little cloudy in there, getting a little foamy on top. That's always good. So we're going to finish letting this go until you don't see any more of these little bits in here. It's going to just be like a weird milkiness. I don't know if you can see the bits. There are bits in there, still floating around. Then we're going to toss that in and wait for it to kick off. And I will see you guys next time, if there is a next time. Alright, I am back. So you can see that it's getting real nice. The yeast is getting real nice and bubbly. There's no more little floaties in there. And we can actually see some bubbles starting. So we're going to mix this up one more time and throw it in the must here. Find a place to set that. Yep, that works. Give this a nice stir. I call this pitching the yeast. I call it throwing it in there. Because why do you need special names for crap? Come on, y'all. Yeah, here we go. Alright, yeast is in. And you can stir it up. It's cool, but I kind of like watching the yeast work its way down. I find that very fun. And it will. It kind of starts up here at the top, and you'll see this area get pale once it kicks off, and then it'll work its way down to the bottom as it goes. It's pretty neat. Alright, so that is ready to go. Set this on here, our airlock, and we'll come back in a couple of days or a week, and well, definitely just a couple of days because this stuff's been going fast and hot. So it'll need some nutrient here in a few days, and we'll take another gravity reading then and see how we're doing. Deuces.